Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the current market analysis webinar. We're going to take a look at some market structure, trading opportunities today. It's Tuesday, 13th of June, 2023. My name's Anil Kumar. Do remember, this webinar is for education purposes only. It's not intended as investment advice. Just a little bit about myself, 20 years trading futures, bonds, commodities, both discretionary and algo. You can read that bit later on, just blah, blah, blah. Most important, risk disclaimer, understand that trading is risky. You must know what you're doing and don't risk capital that you can't afford to lose. So today we've done the introduction. We're going to go straight to charts in a minute because that's what we're all here for. See if we can find any trade setups or a process of looking for trading setups. We're going to look at any news items which may affect the markets. Obviously, there is. We've got CPI coming out today, so that's going to be an interesting afternoon. I'm also going to show you how to look for trade setups using the Zenfinex Plus tools. They're free, so I'll show you how to get access to those in a second too. And while you're at it, here's the domain for the Plus Zenfinex tools. And I'll refer to them as I'm doing my market analysis as well. And so let's go straight to charts. I think that's much more fun. Let's see what's been happening. Hopefully you can see my charts. Yes, you can. Right, so I'm really going to just focus on the British pound, the FTSE, gold, and if we've got time, look around a few other currency pairs. I'm going to do what I always do, and that is get rid of these lines. I was just watching the British pound actually just shooting up, coming up to a 618 level. I'll show you how I get to that in a second. And by the way, those of you who are joining, please don't hesitate to ask me questions. I'm here to help you. If you're struggling with identifying trading opportunities, I'll show you a process that I use. Top down, start from bigger time frames, go to smaller time frames, drill down until I can find levels where I can find trading opportunities. So let's just start straight with the British pound. And as I always do, which is frustrating for some people, I get rid of everything first. But as I've said many, many times on these webinars, I do this deliberately because when I have stale lines, they can distract. So I like to just keep very fresh lines. So remember, those of you who have been to these webinars before, I just start really by framing the market. What are the extremes from a weekly perspective? Where are the turning points that could, or levels that could affect the markets in, from a weekly perspective? Then I always drill down to the daily. Zoom out a little bit, we get a bit of a perspective of the range that we're trading in. And we then start seeing, okay, from a daily perspective, is there anything that we can look at? In terms of levels, we'll go back and look at trend lines and stuff like that in a second. Do remember, I don't use moving averages, oscillators, and any type of indicators. All the information you need to trade is right in front of you. Okay, so you don't need things that look in the past to help you determine anything. So here's, from a daily perspective, I'm going to just move these weekly lines down a little bit rather than draw a daily one. So I'm turning that weekly into a daily. So what's happened? Broke resistance, support, back to support, resistance at the top. So let's start drawing some other levels that might be interesting to us during the course of today. It's just peaked yesterday, so let's just put that in, but I think we need to just be careful of putting that in there because I think the strength shown in the British pound, it's probably going to come and test this weekly level. Obviously, we need to figure out how we can look for trading opportunities from that. So let's now go down to a 4-hourly perspective. Let's just zoom in a bit. So we're looking at the same levels now from the weekly and daily. We can see clearly, and I think I drew this channel quite some time ago, but again, it's the process. The process is doing the same thing over and over again. That's how you're going to become consistent in your trading. Whatever it may be, I'm not suggesting this is the only way to do it, but find a methodology that you just do subconsciously and automatically, right? So I subconsciously and automatically just look for my weekly, daily levels, drill down to 4 hourly, try to figure out, what's been happening and what might happen with news. So we're going to go to news in a second, but let's just draw our levels in. Let's see if it's conforming to any kind of pattern that's recognizable. Let's just zoom in a bit, make sure I've got my channels a bit better than that. So let's just see. So you can see from the weekly, daily perspective, I've got my sort of frame, I've got my trend direction. I'm going to tighten up my channel a little bit to try to hit as many points as possible, because what I'm really looking to do is look for support and resistance where areas could either act as entry points or even stop levels. So here we're looking at the British pound from a 4 hourly perspective. We can see that there is a level which bounced. So what actually happened, it shot down, bounced off this level here, and it's been showing strength from a 4 hourly perspective for the last sort of 4, 8, 12, 16 hours. Incidentally, this line here now is also was showing some level of resistance messing around there, but it's behaved in the past as it's behaving now. And that's important for you to understand, that levels are often touched over and over again. So if you see a level which is constantly being touched, and incidentally touched as recently as yesterday, then obviously we're going to put a line here. So now we're in the middle of this kind of window. Where do we want to get in? Again, those of you who watch these webinars, I never chase price. I look for price to come back, pull back into an area where in the continuation of the trend. So what do I mean by all that? So we can see here that clearly there's some resistance. And in fact, I might just move my line down a little bit further, right? So now I know the distance I've got where it could potentially turn around. There are other levels which, and let me put my cursor on so you can see it. So although there was resistance here from a 4 hourly perspective, there are stronger levels higher up. So we could actually have a potential of reaching either this level or that level. But with this amount of strength, we've got to find a way of getting into this rather than jumping in. Because this level of congestion here, let's just draw that here, is where it's going to find some difficulties, right? So what it's doing is, as price moved up, it messed around, broke through it. Now we're exactly at that level here. And what we really also want to do is, because we are in the upward trend, if you like, or short-term upward trend, we want to see if we can see where prices may pull back to. And again, those of you who've watched these before will know I use fibs from the top to the bottom, and it's just broken through the 618 level. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to ignore all the pushing up, because that's really to get you in on the wrong side, right? All this momentum, whilst tempting just to jump in, there is a strong probability that the market will pull back. Where's it going to pull back to? From fib theory, right? We're looking at the sort of 58.38 level. I'm just going to switch over to candlesticks, because candlestick, maybe it won't be so easy to see. Let me see if I can magnify that a little bit. No, I think I'm going to have to stick with candlesticks, only because you can see them a bit clearer. So you can see it hit its head, turned around when it hit this congestion here. if you were a reversal trader, you would look for price to come into this zone and then start to retrace. But I actually want to see if I can find an area where it might pull back to. So let's go down to the hourly level. And by the way, if I'm going too fast, please don't hesitate to ask me a question, because those of you who know me, I relish questions because they open up opportunities for me to sort of go a little bit deeper. So don't be shy. We've got a few people here today, so don't be shy while I'm looking at this. Right, so look, let's just do some analysis here. We've drawn our weekly, daily resistance levels. We've drawn a channel. We know that there's going to be difficulties all the way up here. Yes, there's some resistance here, but because of the strength, you know, are we looking to test these previous levels of resistance? And we're really going to be looking at what happens today and tomorrow with news, because that's going to be a driving factor too. We've got FOMC and we've got CPI, so they're going to obviously impact markets. Those of you trading for some time or even beginners, keep an eye on those numbers because they tend to be market moving news, particularly at this juncture, because you know there's a question mark whether interest rates are going to go up or stay the same. I don't think there's anybody really looking for any reductions, although in China overnight, you know, they're talking about, you know, reducing interest rates to stimulate the economy a little bit, but I'm not going to really go down that rabbit hole just yet. Let's just focus on what we can see ahead of us. So let's just look at what happened, right? Prices hit this level. Let me put the cursor on so you can follow with me. Hit this level here, came down to a previous level, albeit that we hadn't drawn it, but the fact we have drawn it now means there is some importance to here. It went sideways for a period of time. Let's draw a zone where it went sideways for a while. So now we're kind of looking at the market and saying, okay, this is my window, this is my frame. My bias is on the upside, albeit I've got news as a consideration, right? But I'd like to see prices come back into this 50 fib or 38 fib level. Let me see if I can draw a crude line so you can see what I'm really trying to say. Pull back into this sort of area here, and then I'll be looking to see, subject to news coming out, whether it could go to here or even here, right? So there's clearly strength here. The news will determine if that strength continues. We'll look at gold, we'll look at the US indices as well, because they're all kind of interlinked, okay? You'll see some correlation between them all. So now we're hitting this juncture here at 25.66. As I said, this was a previous area of congestion. Markets broke through that, came to a level which it has seen before and bounced off it. So for those of you know who are new to this, understand something which I definitely know as a fact. Markets move in patterns. If you can understand the patterns and see these patterns over and over and over again, it gives you confidence in placing trades, because that's the problem, I guess. When you don't have confidence in a pattern, you don't have confidence in a strategy, you then become hesitant in placing trades, or placing them at the wrong time, or placing them impulsively. All these things are detrimental to your long-term performance. You really want to develop a repeatable strategy, something that you do repeatedly and that it shows positive results. And this has shown positive results for me. I took a trade yesterday, I think it was on British pound JPY. We may have a look at that if we've got some time. And it did exactly what it's supposed to do, as it's done 1,000 times. All you've got to do is remember that when this pattern appears, that you take a certain amount of action. So look, I'll take this line away, so it's starting to get a bit cluttered. Right at this congestion area here, it's faltered, right? So even though there was a strong move, encouraging people to jump on impulsively to the move up, it hit a level And really, what I'm really waiting to do is for it to pull back. And there is a chance that it could even pull back all the way, because it's Newsday, the volatility could push this all the way back down into this 38 level. Or if there's enough strength, it could continue going up, break these levels, and have a retest. Remember the weekly line that we just drew. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. 1:30 is the news. We'll look at news in a second. In fact, why don't we do that now? And then we can start framing the plan for the day, right? Because we see moves, we get tempted to do things. And what we really want to do is plan. Have a plan that you will execute. And if you're hesitant in executing, it's because you haven't practiced it enough, or that you haven't enough faith in whatever strategy you may be using. I always say this to students and people, thousands of people that I've sort of spoken to about trading, is you've got to have confidence in a strategy. It doesn't matter what the strategy is, right? There's a million strategies out there. I never knock other people's strategies because they've found a way of making it work for them. Doesn't mean it's good, doesn't mean it's bad, it just works for them. So I would always encourage you guys to, set forth a plan to develop a systematic approach, a strategy. And it doesn't matter what it is. If it's moving average, it's moving averages. For me, that's never worked. I always look at levels as the most important thing because, again, those of you who've seen my stuff before, I've always constantly asking myself, why did it turn here? 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 Why? Why? And once you ask the question enough times of yourself, the answer will start emerging because you're questioning why. Why did this turn here? Why did it turn here? Why did it turn here? Well, in this example here, the market turned because previously it had turned. Doesn't mean that we had it already in place, but what we now can do is reference it and say, okay, it turned on this point here, right? And we saw some bullish strength. It went sideways for a bit, albeit on a 1 hourly basis. It's the overnight session in a way. And as soon as we had some news announcements from the UK, it shot up, hit its head here. And what I'm looking to do, I'm not prepared to take a buy position here because from experience, I know there's a probability that it will pull back. Will it 100% do that? Of course, I don't know that, but it's a game of probabilities. It's understanding, right, patterns. It's understanding that they don't always work. And this is where risk management comes into play. And, if anybody's interested in, me doing a special webinar on the psychology and the risk management side, which are things that I don't cover, in these sort of looking for market setups, I'm happy to do that. So we'll be looking at some price action, seeing if it falters. And if it falters, I'm now looking at this level here between the 38 and 50 level for a possible spike up. With news, it might come all the way back down to here because we know, don't we, with volatility, it may come back to here and then shoot up. If it doesn't do that, I'm just not interested at the moment to chase this upward move, because in many ways it's just a retracement of this downward move. So let's wait and see. I promised I'd look at some and talk a little bit about the news coming up. Are there any questions so far? If there's not, I'll continue. Let's pull up the news tool that I use. Those of you who watch these on a regular basis, I always look at this economic insights under the Zenphonex Plus tools. Remember, these are free, just sign up. I think there's going to be some videos on how to use all this stuff in greater detail, but all I really do is look, obviously at the beginning of the week, I will look at the whole week's upcoming news items. And next week, so at Monday, I always look at this, mark down my calendar and say, right, what is going to be important for this week? And then I make sure that any trades that I do take that into consideration. But let's look at what's happening today. It's 13th, lucky 13th. We've had some GBP, which is the cause of that spike, claimant count change, less than expected. Unemployment come down a little bit. So that's what's affecting the pound dollar that we've just looked at. What is probably going to move the market even more relating to the dollar, British pound against US dollar, is going to be the inflation rate. So that is coming out at 1:30 London time, and it's forecasted, to come down. Month on month, slight dip on the year on year. So I always look at the impact of previous news announcements. So this was the announcement back in May, where the previous was 5, the forecast was 4.9, and therefore forecast and actual were the same, but it's still, volatility hit levels, come back down, and then it settled more or less where the gap started. So it didn't even fill the gap. If we look at the British pound effect, let's see what impact it had on the British pound. Last inflation rate year numbers from the US popped up, came back down almost to where it started, because because the forecast had been met. I've got a question here which I will take. Yes, I can do that. I will promise to do that. Let's just quickly get through this, and then we'll look at some charts. You know, don't you? Those of you know me. For me, it's all about the charts, because the charts tell you everything. Everything you need to know what happened, everything you need to know what's happening now, and probabilities of what will happen next. So I will go on to those in a second. So let's keep an eye at 1:30, because that's obviously going to move markets, because they forecasted at 4.3. Nobody knows what the actual number is. And tomorrow, we have got some speeches which will affect the GBP. And tomorrow, we've obviously got, let's put tomorrow's number in. Just make sure that's just tomorrow, not today. So let's see what's tomorrow. We've got PPI, and this is the most important thing, 7 o'clock London time. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Okay, so look, I've had a request for looking at a chart, which is, let's look at CAD JPY first. Let's get the new charts back up again. Let's pull my market watch, CAD JPY, CAD. Just move this out of the way for a second. There it is. So let's create a new chart and do exactly what I preach, right? Weekly. And I can do this quite quickly. We've got some levels here. We've got some levels here. Let's go to the daily. In fact, let me put the top one. I don't think it's going to get anywhere near there just yet, but let's put it in anyway. Let's go to the daily. Beautiful trend up from the daily perspective. Got some levels that we need to be careful of. Let's zoom out a little bit. And if I drew a fib, we can see we're probably at a fib level right now. We're bang on the 618. So that's why it's taking time to pause. And from a, let me just get rid of some of this stuff here. So from a daily perspective, right, we've had this big move down. It's created this level of support. It's been uptrending in a channel. Let me zoom out. And hopefully you notice I'm doing exactly the same thing. And it only takes minutes. Right, so we're in this upward channel. We've got some resistance here. We're at the fib 618 level. Whenever I see price at fib levels, they give an opportunity for a pullback. So where can it pull back to? If we are still in the belief that the uptrend is still there, there's nothing to tell us that it's not, apart from reaching this 618. So what I expect, subject to the news coming out, let's see, the CAD JPY against the CAD. So let's have a look. Put some levels in from a daily perspective. We've got some resistance there. We've got some support here at the 50% fib level. Let me just make that a bit more accurate there. So we've got this little area here. So we know, don't we? Prices, even when they're a trend, they go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, up, down, up, down, up, being on a charge. And now I wouldn't chase this, right? So if the question is, let me see if the follow-up question is there. I want to inquire whether the USD news will affect CAD. Yes, I believe it will, because although it's not paired, the JPY is not paired against the US dollar, right? Everything is correlated. If you look at any currency pair, the dollar has the biggest impact. And if you have news that's impacting the dollar, it's obviously going to have an impact on the pairs and non-related pairs, right? Because, you know, what is happening in Canada? You know, we can do a bit of delving into the USD CAD, see how that correlates with the CAD JPY. So these are the things that you will do. So the question requires a bit of analysis. Let me finish off with the analysis here. So I think it's had a nice move up, and if I draw a fib from the last move up to now, everything is coinciding around this area here. So if I draw, and obviously you've asked me because either you're thinking of getting into a trade or you're already in a trade, but I'd be looking at, if my belief is, look, the other thing to look in terms of momentum, right? So big momentum, pull down, lots of momentum, and the swings are getting smaller and smaller. It's spending more and more time at this level here. So it's taking pause, right? It's paused at the 618, which is a natural number that it pauses at. Whenever I see price go to a 618, it tends to pull back. Doesn't mean that it's not still strong. It's really taking a breather. So then I look for, where do I want to get in if my belief is that the continuation is up? If my belief and price action shows that this has actually come to a level and it wants to come down, that's the trading opportunity. And where will it come down to? You know, it could come down to the 618 level here. And why do I say 618, you know, all the time? So if I just look at this price action here, this probably came further than 618, but let's just have a look at it. Look, prices went up, pulled back into the 618 area and turned. Yes, you're going to say to me, look, it went past it. Fine, I get that. That was because of the strength of the momentum. But every time it pulls back, I do apologize, by the way, if I'm drawing more and more lines in this. It's really to explain how the patterns repeat themselves. That's really the point I'm really trying to make here. So I'd be looking at this level here if my belief was that it's still going to go up, and I'd need to see how price behaved around here at the bottom of the channel, a level of support, you know, at fib levels. They're all confluences. They're all things telling you that these are important areas. And if you see strength building up, then there's a good probability, strong probability, that if the price action around here shows, it will then continue probably to test these higher levels here. I wouldn't be surprised. If you can just put a little note in there and say, do you agree with me or not? But you know, everybody, you know, is entitled to opinion. I'll look at gold next. If you want to just follow up with your question, I can kind of look at that. So the other request was for gold. So let's look at gold. Do exactly what we do every time. We get rid of everything. makes people cry sometimes, but the theory is that if you do this over and over and over and over again, you should end up with the same levels because the levels will remain the same. So I've been drawing this triple top for, I don't know how long now, a long time. I'm going to draw a level here because it found support here, albeit on a weekly perspective. I'm going to go to the daily. I'm going to put some daily levels in as well, because this level here was acting as resistance, 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 came back to support, stayed away from the consolidation area here, right? Bounced off it. So we know this level is quite strong. So if we go here, and you know what I'm going to draw next, don't you? It's the fib. So we go to the top, to the peak, and basically what it's done, it's turned. So this move here, it's bounced off the 50% level, and because it didn't reach the 618 level, right? It could still do that, but it looks like there's still strength for a continuation. So if you get the 618 and it retraces and goes past the 38, it will probably come and continue going down. If it bounces, then there's a strong chance, or a chance, I should say, that this will continue going up. So let's see what else we can find that supports our sort of ideas. So look, I'll get rid of the fib because it's just getting in the way. We know there's a 618 here, so I'll just draw that in manually so it doesn't look too cluttered. Right, so look, found resistance, found support, support. If I pull this up a little bit, so our ranges really, or trading ranges, are within this area here. It's been consolidating for a number of days. I won't draw too, I'll try not to draw too many, but there's actually I'm going to probably need to draw this in. You can see here, it's stuck in this range. And those of you who've been watching these, you know, I'll be looking for a breakout, retest, and a directional trade up to the top. Let me just draw it in crudely. Look for a breakout. And that breakout could be on a smaller time frame. I'm not talking about daily. I'm talking about even, you know, hourly or even less. Actually, you know what? Let me just go to the smaller time frame. Let's go to the 4 hourly and start looking at gold, tidying it up a little bit in terms of our levels. Right, so look, for the last, the person that asked for, have a look at gold. What's it doing? It's just going up, down, up, down. Yes, there are potential trades within this, but not enough for me. I would like to see, you know, it hit or aim for one of these bigger levels here. So I'd be looking for a breakout and really trying to break through this level here. So look, clearly hit, came down, hit, came down, hit, came down, hit, came down, and now it's stuck in the middle. It's obviously waiting for inflation news. So it's probably going to continue within this channel, and it might start having a look at both these levels, either the levels before it makes its move. And if it's going to go up, for me, I would be looking for a breakout and a retest, and then a directional, you know, and I might, you know, take some profits around here. So basically, let it break out, let it retest, take some profits at this previous level of resistance, but there's a good chance it will probably test, you know, these levels here. That's if it's on the upside, right? If it's on the downside, we're going to do exactly the same. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So here we can see that if it goes on the downside, let's draw the breakout. And by doing the retest, you get rid of false breakouts. The danger is that it never comes in retest, right? So then you've got to find another way of getting in, because if it doesn't retest, it means that it's going to continue, you know, sort of heading down here with some issues, you know, around this level and some issues here. So these are the areas where you can start looking at moving stops and using trade management really to lock in your profit. So just, from a perspective, wait for a breakout of this range. You're just going to get trapped unless you're a range trader where you're selling the top, buying the bottom, and just sort of taking bits out of it. But if you really want some sort of directional trade on this, wait for a breakout, wait for the pullback, and then manage the trade, because it will probably, if it does indeed go down, come and retest some of these areas here. Does that answer your question, by the way? I think it was an anonymous attendee that asked that question. Want to acquire. Hopefully I've answered the questions. We're getting to 36 minutes of our webinar. Please ask me any questions before I move on to the rest of the slides. But what I'm showing you here is what I do over and over again. And I can't stress enough, that's what you've got to try to build, a repeatable strategy that you feel confident enough to place trades based upon that, because you've seen the pattern happen over and over and over again. I've got one more question before I go on to the last. That's my pleasure. Anytime, come to these regularly and ask me away. And I'll show you some of my trades, but we have got a live trading room we're setting up where I'll be there and taking live trades. Just sort of join the Zenfinex thing, and then they'll email you when that gets set up. Let's go back to the slides. I've been told to keep these to around 40 minutes because I can go forever if I'm not checked and monitored. Let's do this. Right, so we haven't had a look. We've mainly spent time on the calendar, mainly because we've got 2 days of important news. We want to see how we can trade around that. Here's how to get access. If you haven't got access, it's free. Don't worry, I'm not trying to sell anything to you. These tools are useful. The news is like a calendar plus, because you can look at past events, see how it moved price, etc. Definitely worth having a look at those. Did I show you the calendar? I think I showed you how it moved in previous events and stuff like that. There are some videos that I think we've got on the portal which actually show you how to use this, how to use it, a certain period after the news, or if you're a news trader, what happened in the 15 minutes news was announced. Really useful if you're a news trader. Those of you know me, I tend to stand to one side when news, because I do look for slightly bigger moves, and I like the moves to be structured in terms of a reason for doing them, rather than just getting it on news. So let me just put the last slide on. I hope you enjoyed this, and please come to these regularly, and I'm sure the questions will get you to learn how I look at it anyway, and if it's congruent with the way you look at it, great. If it's not, you might find some things that I do might be useful for your own trading. Okay, I think that's the end. If there's no more questions, I'm up to 40 minutes. Don't really want to go much past 40 minutes. I'll be back on Thursday. We can look at how news affected CPI and etc. And we'll reconvene then. We'll look at how to build. And if you have any questions, by the way, don't hesitate to contact me through the portal, and I'll happily help you on an individual basis as well. So let's do that. And I wish you all a great day. Thank you very much.